Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode where we're going to be talking about motivation and transference. As we have already teased in our last episode, I am Miko, and on the other side of the world, we have Celestina.
Hey, yo!
So what does motivation and transference even mean, and why is that important? In the traditional sense, of course, motivation can be understood as something that motivates you to do something in life, and that is also the case here. And the words, however, that are being used are not necessarily the best chosen words. So right from the get-go, don't get confused with the words we're going to use. Don't feel like this is a shadow of yours in some aspects. It may feel painful if you're, for example, thinking of guilt motivation. But please listen to how we're going to explain it and focus more on that instead of on the word that human design uses to describe these motivations. The first part we, however, need to explain is, where do you find your motivation? And in order to do that, we chose, who could we have chosen for that? We had to choose a motivational speaker. And we chose Tony Robbins. So here you can see his chart as a motivational speaker. We're not really going to dive into the details of this, but we wanted to show you a chart and where you personally can find your own motivation. So depending on which program you're using, it's going to tell you your motivation. In our program, we have the Expert Jovian Archive way of looking at things. When you're looking at the Jovian Archive without paying for it, without having this version of Jovian Archive, which is Maya Mechanics, it may be more difficult to find it. I'm not sure if it even says that, but you can find this information on Neutrino Design on the app. That's where you will find this information to a far cheaper price than Maya Mechanics. So that is a platform which we recommend. They're very good at providing accurate informations. They have a good calculation system behind all of this as well. Apart from that, we always recommend Jovian Archive and mybodygraph.com. So your motivation is this part here, and you will see that the motivation is going to be decided by the color in your personality, sun, and earth. So it's on the right side of your chart, and it's the top arrow of your chart. This is the motivation. Whereas the bottom one is perspective. So this is a bit of a difference here. For you to understand that, the motivation aspect is really about what is your focus in life, or it's also known as the focus arrow in some human design areas, or some people refer to it as focus. We refer to it as motivation, and it's really based on the color of the personality, sun, and earth. And the transference will then show just by understanding, okay, this is your motivation, and there will always be an according transference to that motivation. So it is kind of the other side of the coin. And the way that you use motivation, especially if you're a projector, this is very important for you to know, but also for any other type, it's going to help you make more aligned decisions. So when you're understanding your motivation and when you're understanding your transference, you will be able to navigate a bit more easily what it is that you should be following, what lights you up, what gives you this passion inside of you to actually do something. And the transference is when you're going into the wrong direction, or when you're doing something that doesn't do all of these things, you will end up going more towards the transference.
So let's take a look at motivation as a whole, as a human, before we go deeper into the human design aspect of it. So as humans, we have intrinsic and extrinsic factors of motivation. So intrinsic meaning something that arises from within, driving individuals to engage in activities for personal satisfaction and enjoyment, versus extrinsic motivation, which stems from external factors like rewards or punishments. And this motivates individuals to perform actions to gain something in return. So just so that we have kind of a definition of what that looks like outside of the human design world. And now we can dive into what that means in human design. So motivation, as Miko mentioned earlier, where you can find it on your chart, is the color beneath the line. And it's the key to how consciousness is meant to move you. There are 6 motivations. And again, don't get too wrapped up in the names of all of these. But we have fear, hope, desire, need, guilt, and innocence. And your motivation isn't a choice, right? It's built into your nature. And with anything human design related, the moment your mind tries to take control, motivation can warp that into something different. So really, as we've said in the last couple of episodes, actually, this is all about tuning into your body and listening to your physical body. We're going to start by looking at the arrow that Mika mentioned earlier. So the upper right-hand arrow on your chart, if it is left facing, this is going to be a strategic person with a very strategic learning style and doing things in a structured way. This person can think logically, and they're typically able to zoom in, like hyper zoom in on those details and understand and get down to the nitty gritty of something. That's also enjoyable for this person, right? They like lists. They like that structure. And also being able to pinpoint exactly where an issue lies and be able to remember some of those details that they're studying a bit more clearly. If it is right facing, however, think of this as the big picture thinker, taking a step back instead of zooming in on those details. This person is going to have a more abstract way of approaching things, a bit more of a creative way, out of the box of approaching things. However, it can be more challenging for someone with a right-facing arrow to pull out specific facts out of the blue. Multiple choice is going to be better for this type of person rather than pulling facts out of the blue from nothing. And someone with a right-facing arrow may also need to be asked to recall and share their wisdom. It's not going to be the ability to spew out facts and recall specific statistics, for example. You may have that information in your head, but someone will have to ask you about that specifically for it to be pulled out of you. All of that to say is, you're still taking in information with a right arrow. It may just feel a bit less capable than a strategic mind because our society values and favors those who are more strategic thinkers. If you've ever applied for a job, they're like, yes, we appreciate and like a strategic thinker for this position. And you're like, hell yeah, I'm a strategic thinker because you want the job, right? But your mind may be a bit more creative. And again, not a bad thing. However, we are moving towards more of a receptive direction rather than a strategic direction. Those of you who do have right-facing arrows, wait for the post-life 2027. It'll be a bit different for you out there. All right. Long story long, let's get into each of the motivations. Start us off.
So one thing before we're continuing with the individual motivations, this is a very, very sensitive area that we're getting into because things change very quickly. So sensitive in the way that you need your accurate birth time to get the accurate information. When we're talking about types or channels like gates, things like that, they often need a bit more time to change unless you're on the cusp. If you're a 6th line or a 1st line, for example, if you're born a bit later in the 6th line aspect, you could have switched to another gate if you are just on the cusp of that switch. Same with the 1st line. If you were born a bit earlier, you could have switched to a different time or a different gate. The variables, so these arrows that you're seeing, are all very sensitive to a time frame and they can switch more quickly. So just to bear that in mind, there's a very fine line between the 2nd color, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th. It's a very quick shifting aspect in your chart. Therefore, what we're sharing here with you today, if you don't know your exact birth time, and that also includes, yes, even if you have a minute, like a time of birth that is down to the minute, like for example, 9:11 in the morning or something, where you think, okay, this is exact. We still don't know 100% unless your parents were really paying very close attention to your exact time of birth, if the doctor or the nurses really wrote down the accurate birth time. So this is just something to bear in mind. This is also a reason, it's not the main reason, but it is also a reason why I find human design should be an experiment that you try out, that you test for yourself, just because most of us can't be 100% sure that this is actually the right birth time for us. So when it comes to the motivations, we have as a first color motivation, fear. And here we go. We're starting with the words that can feel a bit strange to us at first. So what does that mean to have motivation fear? It means that you really want to know all the details about what it is that you are working on, what it is you're studying, what it is you want to know more about, because it provides you with a sense of safety. So you're not really satisfied with just knowing the surface level of things. You want to dig deeper into things. And you also sometimes consider whether it is better and or safer for you to work on things alone or with other people. So what makes you feel safer when you're working on this thing? To be by yourself, to have the full control, or to be able to work with others and share responsibility. When you step to the other side, we have need as a transference. So instead of diving deep into the nitty-gritty to understand the full topic in all aspects, you just do what is necessary. You basically just cover 1, 2, or 3 aspects regarding this subject, but you don't have a foundational knowledge. You don't know everything about everything. Well, you don't know everything about this thing that you're doing, whether it's a project, a subject, or whatever it may be. And this is not the right way for you. It would not make you feel happy. It wouldn't make you feel safe, because what you really need to do is to discover and explore every detail of whatever it is you're following through with. Just bear that in mind and see how that resonates. If you do have fear as a motivation, then need is your transference. And what you're going to be learning here is just to become more aware of these things within you. Nothing is good or bad. It's just how it is. But when you're slipping into, okay, let me just do the bare minimum. If you have fear as a motivation, this is not the way that you should be going. You should really figure out everything that you need to know in order to feel safe and have a foundation. If you're looking at the lines as well, or the profiles that we discussed, you know that line 1 or profile 1 is always connected to a sense of foundation, a sense of safety, a sense of security, and this is the same in this case as well. Color 2 would be hope motivation. And you don't really need to know which color it is, but I'm just sharing it just to give you the full picture here. Most of the time you will just have it written out in whichever platform you're using. So motivation 2, aka color 2 of the personality Sun and Earth, is hope. And hope is basically you planting the seed of hope in others and lifting them up. As you can see, this is what Tony Robbins does. He doesn't just do it on stage actively, but it is inherently inside of him. This is his motivation. He loves to plant the seed of hope in others, to give them the innate trust in life and also in themselves that whatever they need, it will be provided. And that is what hope is about. It is about having a really positive, uplifting outlook in life that whatever you need, it will be provided to you through the universe, through serendipity, which is pretty much the universe. So whatever you need, it is always there. You don't have to worry. It's going to come to you. However, if he switches to transference, as in his guilt aspect, and yes, again, don't take the words too seriously here, but if he switches to guilt as his transference, instead of feeling hopeful and having this positive kind of lucky go round attitude, and really feeling it. It is not about your mind saying, okay, yeah, it's going to happen, but your physical body and everything inside of you doesn't believe it. That's not what it is about. It is an innate feeling of really trusting and having the faith that things are going to work out no matter what. And it also is not about just sitting around twirling your thumbs. You can't expect everything to just happen and fall into your lap if you're not doing anything. So please, this is one thing that I find very important to mention. You can have faith in the universe. You can trust in the universe. But if you're just going to sit at home not doing anything, how is anything supposed to cross your path? How is the universe supposed to provide you with anything? You do have to go out there, show yourself, engage with life. You don't have to engage with that many people if you don't enjoy engaging with people. But you do have to do stuff. You do have to step into action. So guilt as a transference is, yes, you do have a sense of feeling guilty. And that is when you start to try and fix things for others, but also for yourself. You're just actively trying to fix things because of this inner feeling of guilt. And this is not what it should be about. So this is the transference of hope. We are going to also cover guilt as a motivation. First, listen to this version that we're sharing here, and then we're going to share the version for guilt as a motivation. It is not one-to-one translatable. So what we're sharing here in the transference doesn't mean that it's going to be the same for the motivation. As a third color, or as a third motivation, we have desire. And desire is something that you really want to make or achieve something, and you really want to make a difference in the world. When you're seen as an authority in your field, you really shine so much and so bright, but you also have to first become an authority in your field. When you're looking at the transference of this, it would be innocence. And innocence is, instead of leading, you don't want to have anything to do with anyone. So the desire is really stepping into a leadership position and taking the wheel into your own hands and making a difference, making a change. Whereas innocence is really about letting yourself be led, and that you just don't want to do anything for anyone, not want to support them, not want to be this role model for people. As a fourth color or fourth motivation, we have need. And yes, we already talked about need in the transference. Now we're going to talk about need in the motivation aspect. So when it's about need, you don't have to dig into the details. You can actually wing it more easily in certain aspects. You don't have to know every nitty-gritty aspect about something. And you can just focus on the necessary aspect, like the bare minimum, but you don't have to dive into the detail. On the other hand, if you're looking at fear as a transference, you have a tendency to then dive into trying to figure out everything and knowing everything about the project, the person, the subject, whatever it may be. So you're getting lost in the details. And that is not what a need motivation should be doing. A need motivation should just use what they need, the bare minimum they need in order to feel safe and secure to do their thing, but they don't need all the details and all the information about something. The fifth color, or the fifth motivation, is guilt. And we also talked about guilt already as a transference. Here we are talking about guilt as a motivation. So as a guilt motivation person, you gain satisfaction by fixing things and really want to help others change things for the better. So it can feel like a sense of guilt, but it doesn't have to. As I said, the word itself doesn't necessarily carry the whole impact of this motivation. So you basically you may either step into the active fixer motivation, or you may step into figuring out ways that will help people fix things themselves. If you are a fifth line here, just be very mindful. So if you have a fifth line profile, not to get confused with fifth color, but if you have a fifth line profile, just be mindful to still be very selective. And I would recommend this even for guilt motivation people. Just be selective of what you're going to try and fix. This is not about fixing everything. It is still about following your strategy and inner authority to make the decisions of what really needs your attention to be fixed. Because once you're following your motivation, you're in it and you really want to follow through with it. And this is not a healthy way if you're just doing this for every single thing that crosses your path. Just bear that in mind with everything that we're sharing, to always use your strategy and inner authority to make the decisions regarding what it is that you should be focusing on and what it is that you shouldn't be focusing your energy on. So the transference of guilt is hope. And instead of being the person that fixes things, you basically lean back and have hope that something would just fix itself, that something is just going to disappear on its own, that you would rather be saved by someone instead of dealing with it yourself. So this is what hope is about in transference mode. You're just like, okay, the universe will take care of it. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to fix anything. I'm good. So the sixth color, we are looking at innocence as a motivation. And as innocence as motivation, your role is just to be. And just being will lead you to being a role model for others. All you have to do is enjoy yourself and share your passion with the world without any agenda. And this is probably the most conditioned version of motivation, I feel, because being innocence, having the innocence motivation, most of the world is going to tell you, okay, it's not about enjoyment in life. You have to do things that you just have to do in order to earn money, in order to be successful and stuff like that. But for an innocence motivation, it is actually go enjoy yourself, be the version of yourself that you want to be. And I believe that for everyone as well. I just wish that everyone would just be and do what they really are passionate about, because when they do that, then it's magic. When you see someone that loves what they do, they radiate, and that attracts other people. So yes, as an innocent motivation, just make sure that you just be. And that is going to make you look like a role model. It is going to make other people look at you like you're a role model to them. If you're shifting to the transference of innocence, it is desire. So instead of being a passive role model, which basically you are just by being, it's not that you're claiming, okay, I'm a role model. No, it's something that people are going to put on you as a title, or they're going to look at you as a role model because they love this authentic you, who you are just being. So instead of being a passive role model, you choose to lead and start to force people to be a certain way or do something, and you're pushing them around. So that is going into the transference of innocence. That is you just being very pushy, you're living in your shadow when you're doing that. You're basically putting that onto them, what you should be doing yourself, just being yourself. You're putting all the pressure onto them, and you're saying, hey, okay, you have to do this in order to be the best version of yourself, or in order to achieve something. That's not what you should be. So I personally believe that there is still elements of the other things in yourself as well, because I am personally a fear motivation. So I do need to dive into the nitty-gritty and the details and know everything and have a solid foundation before I can do stuff. And Celestina is about to say, hell yeah.
You don't say.
Yes. So I have other people that would also confirm this in many other areas of life. So yes, it is my motivation, and I love understanding everything and the details and all. And I may also be a bit obsessive compulsive in this area when I really want to know something. But I also believe in the universe. I also believe that there is no lack in the universe. And I think this is just a different way of looking at things. So I think that the universe provides whenever you need something, when you're in alignment. It's not just going to happen just to everyone or with everything, but you do have to put effort and work into yourself as well. There has to be a balance. This is my personal opinion, and it is different to motivation. So motivation is a way of going through life with having this kind of motivation, this innate, okay, this is just how I navigate and how I stay motivated and how I also achieve things in life. The other thing that I described regarding having faith in the universe, I feel like this is a belief system, but it is a sense of feeling that is also inside of me. It's like I feel at peace when I believe that. It's not something that comes from my mind necessarily. Yes, it is a belief concept, but it is something that I feel in my bones. So I feel like there is still a bit of a difference, and I may not be explaining it too well, the difference between motivation and having this innate belief. But I don't use this to be motivated and to step into action, if that makes more sense.
It's a really in-depth breakdown, and I think it's super helpful to see both sides of the coin, exploring what is your motivation and then seeing the transference, but then also seeing what your transference is as someone else's motivation, I think is really helpful in understanding, yes, yourself, but also the other humans around you, right? Because I can see fear motivation in you 100%. And I'm sure you can see guilt in me, So it's really interesting to see it. And again, recognize when you may be going into that transference piece of it. And for you guys out there to kind of assess that, some questions or some things that you can look for in yourself to determine if you're in your transference. If you have mental anxiety, if there's restlessness, if there's this loop that you find yourself in, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like a mental anxiety loop, but it can be not a literal loop. Oh my God, could you imagine just being like looped around? But if you find yourself going around in circles and it's not working, assess what your motivation is. Assess how, there's so many different things you can assess, but from a motivation standpoint, assess what the motivation is behind it. Are you in your motivation or are you in your transference? If you're putting effort towards something and not feeling the satisfaction, peace, success, combination of satisfaction and peace and or surprise, that could be a telltale as well. And if you're chasing outcomes, but in the end you're feeling hollow after achieving them, notice, are you coming at it from that true motivation? If you are coming at it from that true motivation, it should feel natural, it should feel organic, it should feel peaceful, it should feel like you, even if the topic is really heavy on the other end, right? Like if you're coming at it from the youest perspective, it should still feel really good. So notice that. And I think that that's also good to note. So with guilt motivation personally, right? I love helping people change things for the better, right? Like that is my bread and butter. But I've learned that other people need to want it too. I can come in and I can do it all day long. But if I'm not, and not even if I'm not being recognized or seen for it, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Some people will say, oh my God, great job. Some people won't. And that's not why I do it at the end of the day. But if someone really doesn't give a shit on the other end, I'm doing it for naught. And then it feels really icky on my end, right? So make sure that not only are you doing it for you, but the people that are involved or you're doing it with or for also actually care, right? That's going to make the difference for you, for it to be sustainable and for it to feel good on the other end of all of it as well. Okay, so some action steps that you can take. Notice when your motivation feels mentally driven versus naturally arising, right? Is your mind getting in the way, or is this something that you're genuinely feeling into? Hark back to your strategy and authority. These are the guardrails, essentially, to be able to protect you. Okay, I'm going to go back. Trust your strategy and authority. Think of bowling, and when you're a kid, you put the guardrails up because you don't want to go in the gutter. Think of transference as the gutter and the lane as your motivation. Following that strategy and authority is going to help keep your bowling ball in the lane, quote unquote motivation, rather than in the transference in the gutter. And it's not always going to be easy necessarily, right? Like sometimes the ball goes awry, but if you can stick to your strategy and authority, the better. I mean, that's really the essence of human design, right? Like, yes, we give you all of this information, and please keep listening to these episodes, but like, your strategy and authority is key. And the more you can lean into that, the more natural all of these more deep aspects are going to feel for you. And last but certainly not least, let go of those mental solutions, right? Like, yes, your brain is a fantastic tool, but you're already inherently designed to be able to move correctly, to surrender. And if you do so, you'll listen to that body, your physical body, and the consciousness that it can provide for you and the insights that it can provide for you. So that was motivation and transference in a nutshell. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, ask us, and yeah, any other insights, Miko?
No, you wrapped it up well.
Alrighty, guys, if you do have more questions on this, please hit up Miko. This is what she does. She will go deeper into your human design with you. Opportunity.life. Again, who needs the .com? Because that's some 1999 BS over there. Hit her up on opportunity.life. And share this with your friends. If you guys are all getting into human design together, we'd really appreciate that. Start with the earlier episodes if you need some more of the basics of human design. And if you want to get wild and crazy, listen from episodes 10 till now. Get wild and crazy with us.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Bye. Hardcore, the Human Design Podcast. Bloopers. Silence. I know. Give me time. Pulling some roots here, okay? Good morning, everyone. No. What? Who knows if it's their morning or not? What is my motivation? I think it's guilt. What is my motivation?
Like a true projector.
Freaking projector.